Hello, bad friends. We have a podcast for you. Bad Books for Beginners by Chris and Jerry too. Gotham is a city where the sun doesn't shine. We'll light up the story arcs and have a good time. Join Chris and Jerry on Bat Books for Beginners. They break down the Batman story arc so you can invest your lunch money wisely. Part of the BatmanUniverse.net family of podcasts.
1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Southern Fried Geekery Podcast. I think it's episode 59. As usual, I am Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
I'm Craig Lance. You know our things used to say what episode they were.
Mine still does. I don't know about your guys, but
mine just says SFG.
Well, see, I've got it on my actual computer, and I've got it saved as 59. So I will do better at that. I'm sorry,
It's okay.
Fire myself.
As long as one of us knows.
We just need to make up a number.
I'm Sean,
and I'm Jerry.
All right, and we are. Do we want to do that over?
I don't know.
Okay, no, just keep going. Fuck it. All right. Well, hey,
that's how we do.
We're really good at our jobs. No, I'm not.
I'm not getting paid for this.
Welcome back, guys. We are excited to be here and talk about some comics. This is going to be another Smother'd Covered in Comic episode. If you've been listening to the show for the last little bit, you know we switched up our. I don't even know what you call it. The way we do things. Or format. See, I'm just not. My brain, it doesn't.
You lost the word.
Everything, blah, fuck.
Good thing you're the English major.
Exactly. I word good. No, we switched up our format, like Craig said, and we're doing things staggered a little bit. So next week we'll come back, we'll have some news, and we'll talk about some more comics, and just kind of keeps things interesting, keeps things mixed up. I kind of like it sometimes. And sometimes I don't. Hadn't decided yet. But if you want to keep up with all that jazz and also become a larger part of the SFG community, you should come by our Facebook group where we're always hanging out digitally-ish and posting cool things, talking about things that are going on, posting news, having conversations with a lot of folks from not just our neck of the woods, but from all over. It's been really, really cool. We're also on Instagram and our Twitter page. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. And now that I've got that bullshit out of the way, let's talk about some comics.
Let's talk about comics.
All right, so
Are you ready to rumble?
Let's talk about comics.
Oh, are we talking about a wrestling comic this week?
No.
Okay. No.
Oh.
I thought we'd mix things. I thought you were just calling a shot. I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm changing it all up on you right now. Roundtable book is, yeah.
All right, before we do this, I want to just reiterate, as we always do, that this is going to be a review show. We're going to talk about comics. We're going to dig into them a little bit. So inevitably, you can't do that without spoiling some things. So here is your Southern Fried Geekery official, fresh, hot off the rack spoiler warning. So I think we're doing. It may be a first. I don't know if it's a first. It feels like a first.
First roundtable.
Yeah, first roundtable for sure. So a while back, about a month ago, 2 months ago, Shonen Jump, big manga studio from Japan, did this really cool thing where they created an app, and now they are launching basically the same day drop of anime and manga that they do in Japan through Shonen Jump. You can get now an app for the low price of like $2 a month, which is insane. And so a lot of us, us at SFG, people just around the way, jumped on this app hard. A lot of sequential art fans. And it's been well worth it. I know I've got it on my phone, so just playing around throughout the day, I use my phone. So we have the opportunity, and we're going to take advantage of it to actually talk about some manga when it comes out. And hopefully as new series comes out, we can do our normal thing where we talk about it fresh, like the same week it comes out. But on this one, there's been a series that I know, Sean, you've really, really been liking. And so I think you're the one who kind of suggested it to do it as a roundtable. And we're going to jump right into it. The series is called The Promised Neverland. It's by Keiyu Shirai and the art by Pasuka Demuzi. I think I got that right.
Close enough.
Hey,
and if they have a problem with it, any way you pronounce it, anything, come to show and find us about it.
And this, we read the first 3 chapters of it. So manga traditionally, or at least seems to me, doesn't come out in, they don't call them issues, but they call them chapters because it's a larger story. It's kind of all contained into
typically it's like while we'll get events or arcs here in the West, most manga, especially in the Shonen Jump model, is usually one continuous story for hundreds and hundreds of chapters.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we decided to jump into this one. Now this is a larger story.
Yes.
And it has had a lot published. I think they're on episode 158 or issue 158 right now, something along that.
Chapter
158. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to break those habits.
Right. It is.
And so we decided to go back and talk about the first three. That theoretically should give you a taste, an idea of what's going to happen in the series, kind of hooks you. And Sean, do you want to run us through the first three? Tell us kind of what it is.
Well, in the first chapter, basically throws you in right off. I mean, this throws you right into the deep end of the pool. What it is there is an orphanage where the main characters you get to meet. It's a huge cast of kids that are all just living in this orphanage with a single house mother. They all just call her mother. They're all in white suits, and they have the first thing that tells you that is kind of off is that they all have numbers tattooed on their necks.
Yeah.
But other than that, you see them playing happily, getting along. They love going outside and playing tag. And then you see their studies where they got real advanced technology, like their desks are like giant, almost like tablets where they can just write straight on there and solving like advanced math problems and equations and all that kind of stuff. But and overall, while that's a little off, a little weird, but it's overall you just see the kids being real happy. And they recently got announced that this girl is going to be adopted. Mm-hmm. It's a big event. Of course, kids being kids are happy she's getting adopted. They're sad she's leaving. It's a big deal, obviously. Was it Connie? Connie, thank you. She's never seen without her her stuffed animal, little bunny.
Yeah, I got a little bunny. Yeah,
little cute, always carrying
little
around.
Cutesy rabbit.
Right. And she's saying goodbye. She's leaving. Main character Emma. Well, at least one of the these into being three main characters. Emma being one of them. Mm-hmm. She sees little bunny on the ground after Connie's already left to go meet her new adoptive parents. And of course they're like, okay, well, she needs little bunny, so Emma and Norman go after Connie to get her little bunny before she's taken away to her new family. But the thing is, they know they'll get in trouble because they're not supposed to go to the gate of the orphanage that leads outside of it.
Yeah, I think there's a gate and a wall, right? There's one.
It's completely walled in, and they know that. They see the borders when they're out playing in the woods, playing tag during their recess time.
Yeah,
and so they know they're not allowed to go across certain boundaries, for their safety, and they're definitely not supposed to go to the gate that'll lead outside of the entire compound. Mm-hmm. But they're like, well, Connie loves her stuffed animal. We have to go. So they sneak out there and they get out to the gate. They see a wagon that they're assuming that's where she's leaving in, but they don't see anybody around. So they're like, okay, we'll drop off little bunny into this wagon. And what they do is they go into the wagon, move the little tarp cover in the back, and there's Connie, dead, with a plant.
Yeah, I was going to say she's got a rose or something sprouting out of her.
Yes, there's a flower sprouting out of her, and she is clearly dead. And obviously they are distraught by this. That's when they hear some people approaching and they just, in a panic, go underneath the wagon to hide. And that's where the fucking bombshell drops. What they see is, as they call them, two demons. Mm-hmm. Either monsters, large creatures, cloaked but still seeing like these masks that they're wearing.
Yeah, they look kind of like pyramid heads from Resident Evil. Was that
Silent
the game?
Hill.
Silent Hill. Yeah, I'm not a gamer.
Still good though.
I tried. I put forth an effort.
And what they learn basically is, like, through the conversation that these demons are having with their mother, the orphanage mom, is basically these kids are raised as cattle. Mm-hmm. Like, they are food for the demons. And you can tell they're a delicacy because the demons are like, let me just get a fingertip because this isn't the kind of meat I usually get to eat. A great YouTuber I listen to, who's covering the anime, which is the other big reason I want to talk about this, is the anime is currently being aired on Crunchyroll. He called the show "When My Wagyu Beef Runs Away,"
right?
Because these are like prime choice meat apparently in this world that these kids are raised.
Yeah, it's like veal.
Yeah,
and just throwing back to talking about the first issue. So one thing you really realize before you discover the demons and the kid going away is that there's three kids that are a little bit older than everyone else, and they're the ones who are scoring better on these tests.
They're the top
taking.
3 students.
Yeah, but they're significantly older. Like you can tell, there's a height difference, there's an age difference, Everyone else seems to go away to get adopted by the age of 6.
Yeah.
Which these kids are 12.
Right.
And so you see that, and so that right there, that's the first inkling that, hey, something's weird about this. Something's not exactly right.
Yeah, I think there's about 5 of them total that are around 11.
Yeah, there's the
Like
other
those-
girl with the glasses. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, those 3 though are like they're definitely the oldest, but there are like 1 or 2 others that are like right around that age. But yeah, most of the kids around the age of 6 is when they usually tend to get adopted. Yeah, absolutely right.
Which isn't uncommon for an orphanage.
No,
not.
right. You know, I've looked at looking at the statistics of it all. You know, the younger the kid is, obviously they get adopted faster. But by the age of 6, after 6 or 7 school age, your numbers, the chances that you're going to get adopted drops by like 40%. By the age of 12, it's in the 1%.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Single digit numbers for those kids. But yeah, so they're it's kind of like I said, like veal. It's like the younger the meat, the quicker it comes off the table. But these other kids are being primed.
Right.
They're being.
Right, and I'm having to actually, because I've read all 150 plus chapters, I'm trying to remember what all was only in these 3, so I'm kind of going through the app as we speak.
So chapter 2 was a lot of, they figure out, of course, based on the ending of chapter 1, they start piecing together what's really going on. Emma and Norman start piecing it together, and they start trying to put together a plan on how to get out of there.
Which is where now the series really, I think, shines, especially in these early chapters, the tension.
Mm-hmm.
They know what's up. They can't let the orphanage mom know they know what's up. Because they pretty much, I'm pretty sure it was in these early chapters, they assume like right away, like, I'm sure if we find out, we're shipped off immediately.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're worried about getting busted.
So Emma, who's the super happy, always cheerful person, always quick to give everybody a hug, has to keep that going, knowing that they are being just raised to be served up as food. And like the writer and the artist, they would just combine so well together to make you feel the tension and the fear in these kids.
Well, and it's not just it's not like we talk about it. You run the risk of making it sound like it's just kind of like a classroom setting. Right. These kids view each other like family. They're raised in orphans. They very much have a sibling complex,
and they've been there since they were babies.
Exactly, and so they're raised together. And the one character, Emma, she kind of is a mother figure in a lot of ways. Besides mom, she's the only mother figure who really takes care of the younger kids and is very close to them. And so as they find out that they're being raised as meat, they're being raised to be shipped off and to be killed. Like chattel, they're also keeping that secret away from most of the other kids as well.
Because they don't want to freak them out. They don't know if they'd be able to handle it or believe it or not, or just as a child would do. If they hear something bad or off, or they think it's a lie, they'll run straight to your mom to tell. So not only do they have to figure this out for themselves, Emma's big thing too is in the escape that they eventually start planning in the second chapter. Is she doesn't want to leave anybody behind.
Right.
It's not even an option. And some of these kids are still infants. And that's one of the big things about her and her resolve, like you said, with the family.
Yeah, it's all or nothing.
It is absolutely all or nothing. And then her and Norman are going around and like they got their buddy Ray, who's the third of the older kids. He's real quiet though, bookworm, just kind of sits and reads by a tree while everyone else is playing out in the fields. So they haven't even told him. And they're just trying to kind of work around without looking suspicious. They start really investigating the perimeters, what they have to deal with if they want to get out of this thing. And that's also, like I said, a big part of this early stuff is the plan, the escape plan. Almost like that, that Shawshank kind of build up into how they're going to escape. And the whole time, well, I mean, when you're just, it's not a huge area. It's a pretty big compound.
Yeah, it's not small.
But it's not super huge where they can easily just sneak away.
Well, it's like the X Mansion, right? It's
I mean, they're within their grounds, and mom always seems to kind of know where people are, which they kind of mentioned, like she's always quick when they're playing hide and seek.
Yeah.
If like one kid can't be found, mom finds them pretty quick. So
she goes right to them.
Yeah, she knows at least their actions, how it seems like she's always has this uncanny way of finding them. So while trying to act like they're still playing, still doing their normal activities, they've got to scout the area and figure out their best escape plan. And in the second chapter is where they get into is they go past the little small gate that's always been their border that they can't go deeper into the woods. And they finally just cross over it to discover it's just a huge flat wall that surrounds the entire complex. That adds a whole new issue to their escape plan.
And they go looking for rope.
They do.
Yep. That's the main thing. And what they kind of, so while they're doing this, they kind of notice that Mom is probing a little bit. There's some very suspicious activity happening around Mom. She starts asking questions that she wouldn't normally ask. And what they decide, I don't know that there's really any actual evidence to put forth this, other than she walks out in the woods and finds a kid who's been asleep and just walks right back, like Sean said when they were playing hide and seek and stuff. So they kind of decide that she's got a tracking device on her.
Well, they show it in the anime. I
was just flipping through it while he was talking. It actually does confirm in this chapter. One kid comes crawling back.
One of the little kids, yeah.
Nayla. In the woods, he's crying, he's freaked out because they were all hiding. And Mom, she always has like kind of a pocket watch that she's constantly looking at and telling them.
That's
like,
right.
Time for
yeah,
that.
That's what it was.
And you see her just openly, just like flip it open, close it, walk straight to the woods, walk straight back out with her.
Right.
And which is a big moment because Emma and Norman are like, she knows.
Yeah.
Because, that's something we forgot to mention in the first chapter. Was they left little Bunny underneath the wagon.
Yeah, they left.
And Mom knew she did not bring little Bunny.
Yeah.
So Mom already suspected someone saw. So that's what kind of builds up the battle between them and Mom. And now Mom is flat out going. She pretty much showed them, I know where you're at all times.
Yeah, but she doesn't know who.
And
exactly.
and the thing about it is they basically find out that she can track. Then, based off of the things that have happened with that tracker, they deduce that she can't tell who she's tracking because she tells everybody else to stay there, and she goes out and finds this one kid. And that essentially means, like, if someone else was off or whatever, then she would end up going.
It's like sonar.
them.
So it's really funny. I was watching the new Umbrella Academy show just kind of dropped, and so I was watching it. And there's a similar, it's not really a spoiler or anything, but there's a similar moment in that to where they're tracking this kid, and it's like old school sonar. It just shows up as a green blip. You can't tell who it is. There's no identifying features. You just know there's a tracker, and so they're kind of working with this mindset as they're pretending like nothing is going on. They're trying to act, be happy-go-lucky, and they're going through and just kind of smiling, avoiding suspicion, and trying to find some rope, of which there are none.
And they also kind of bring up, like, because of that and the tracker not being able to, tell who is who on it, then she probably doesn't know that it was specifically them that went to the truck that night.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So while she's kind of openly does show that in general, and you can see it throughout the books and the anime, Mom is constantly like side eye. Like you can tell she at this point she knows somebody is. She doesn't know who. So it's also her trying to like deduce by their action, by them acting out of their normal character. That was like kind of the big hint though that like, okay, they know that it's actually a battle with her and them of like is she gonna catch them or are they gonna get out? That was the end of chapter 2. And in chapter 3 they were kind of like debating on due to conversation they overheard with the demons, trying to figure out what's the appeal, why these kids and why are we being raised the way we are. And that's when Norman kind of figures out brains. Brains must be a delicacy. And this is kind of where they break down about all the testing and the higher scores. And I think it was here's where they noted that Connie never was really good at academics.
Right.
She was this cute little girl, like I said, 6 years old, but she didn't excel like Norman, Ray, and Emma. So that's when they kind of deduce this on their own. They're like, if you go out early, it's because you're not your grades.
You're not
your
excelling.
brain's not developing also something noted along the lines of like once you hit a certain age, your brain stops. So like 12 years old must be that prime meat moment, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing that makes them a delicacy is their big brain, but it's also going to give them their intelligence is going to be what's going to save them. So it's a double-edged sword for Mom and the orphanage and the demons, because they want them to have a big brain and be smart. Yeah. And because it's the better, as Sean put it, meat. But on the other hand, you've got these 3 kids that are starting to piece all of this together. And, they deduce how they actually get the tracking device in them and things of that nature.
And like I said, the game is afoot at this point, starting in chapter 3, and there's a great moment. And like my description won't do it justice if y'all can just see the artwork or watch the anime. there's a moment where Emma, while they've already become stoic and staying in their traditional character, sees the drawing that Connie had put up on the wall is now gone. And there's just a moment of her just kind of breaking a little bit. You can just see her getting sad, and it's instantaneous, a full page of just mom leaned in super close, eyes wide, looking at her. Like she didn't even see her come up on her. And it's just a tense exchange of like, you seem pale. You don't seem like you weren't as happy as you normally are this morning. Like mom's like testing those waters, and she's just got to maintain that while looking at a woman who's selling them out for food.
Right.
And to me, especially like I said, the early chapters, and as I said, I've read on, and like this book just continues to open up more and more.
Yeah.
But
Well, and so I think the last thing, the big reveal in the third chapter is something about mom. And which in my book, I think is meant to make you feel even more some kind of way about her. She's got the same tattoo that the kids do.
she does.
She at some point must have been one of them who has sold everyone else out or has saved herself by becoming I don't know if there's a right way to put it, but becoming the figure who is
The shepherd.
like them that sends them off. I mean,
Well, at some point, because they kind of allude to it, that there's more of these orphanages around. This one just happens to be kind of the grade A, the super.
Cream of the crop.
Yeah. This is like the top farm in the industry.
she's the Aunt Lydia of the group, to
Right.
use that reference, or the person who should have the ability to empathize or to understand, the person who knows what's going on but is just selling out her own kind. She's Milo Yiannopoulos for my group of people, maybe.
Well, I mean, so it's alluded to that there's this, this is going on everywhere.
Yeah.
At least at this point in the game. I'm sure that it's very heavily introduced later in the story, but
Oh yeah, you find out how mom got to this spot, what's going on, like by the later chapters. I mean, you see what's the whole deal. Appeal of the series. Like I said, I'm not trying to get we covered 3 chapters of 150 plus. It's just an amazing book with a very unique crafted world that's even bigger than just this orphanage escape. Although like the whole them just escaping from the orphanage could have been the entire series, I would have been happy.
Yeah.
That's the way it's written. But what did y'all think? Especially like Craig, you watched a little anime. Caleb, I know anime is not really your thing.
I'll shoot it to Craig.
Yeah. How much of it did you just watch?
I watched
enough
the
for-
first 3.
Yeah.
I don't know if in the manga if they brought the sister in at that point or not, but she was brought in the anime at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's one I will keep watching, but I don't know that it's one I won't, and it's mostly just has to do with what I have already on my schedule to watch.
Right.
It's intriguing. It's very horror oriented, which at first I didn't get when I first started watching it. I'm like, this is just, it's a bunch of little kids. It's like a kid's anime. What's going on? Then, of course, the big reveal at the end of the first chapter or episode. And it was like, okay, well, this took a dark turn. And, I mean, I can definitely see the appeal to it if it's something that you're into. I can definitely see the appeal to people over it. So
It's not for me. So I know you watched the anime. I read the first 5 issues of the manga. There was some point when I was reading issue 1 where I damn near texted you and said, yeah, you're going to carry this because I'm not going to keep reading it. Issue 1 was a fucking slog for me. It was tough to get through. I personally don't care for the art. Now, when it gets into the second and third issue, I think the art picks up, especially when they're drawing the demons and when the storylines pick up. But there was just a lot in this that's not. I get what they're doing. I get the premise. I understand what they're going for. At least in the first 5 chapters, the packaging doesn't do it for me. I understand also that we were reading something that English is not its original language. The translation seems very Google Translate to me. Like it doesn't seem like these are people. Number one, I have a hard time with child narrators anyway in any type of book, whether it be comics, whether it be prose or whatever. I have a really hard time when it's child narrators speaking like 50-year-old men who are, like, I deduce this. Do you deduce this? And it's very, in the first 5 chapters of the thing, it's these kids are using vocabulary that even if they are smart kids, but even the young ones are using vocabulary that is way beyond them, but is also, it's not fluid. Like it's very, like I said, it feels like Google Translate. It's very choppy.
see, I didn't get that in the anime, so that may have been a translation.
I didn't really get it in the manga, but I mean that just could be because Sean and I read a lot of manga, so
And I mean, like I said, it is manga translation is always. I ain't gonna say choppy, but like you said, it is hard when you're translating.
No, for
Even
sure.
though it's not direct translation, there has to always be interpretation into it.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've always felt, and you're not the first to mention that, not specifically with this story,
Yeah.
but I do find a lot of people, and like I said, not a knock on you at all, but like literary people, like manga is usually not written in the Japanese way that appeals.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because it is, I say, not knocking the stories. Obviously, I love manga.
Yeah.
It's almost a simpler way of writing
Well, I don't know that that's.
in a weekly, having to put out a book on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And that's even, and like I said, and I don't know, I can't read.
I was going to say,
katakana.
well, what I was going to say, I disagree with that a little bit because I've read other manga before and have no problem with the translation. The conversations seem fluid, they seem natural. They've got some really good translators on this book. One of my favorite writers of prose is Elena Ferrante, and she's Italian, and all of her stuff gets translated. So there's definitely a way to do it. And they may, so once the series became popular, I know like you said, you've read 150 issues. Maybe they got different translators on it. So it's just these first ones that are kind of rough. I don't know. I'm not reading past the first 5 chapters. Or at least I haven't yet. So that may be figured out. But anyway, that was just something that stood out to me.
No,
especially
it
when,
made it fun,
when the kids are, I forget what, they're having this conversation about strategy. And it's like they keep using that word. And it's still like, we deduced the strategy. And I'm like, okay, those aren't kids talking.
And in my mind, it is, like you said, you don't feel that them being academically gifted justifies that. For me and what I'm used to, maybe it's
Yeah.
what I'm used to reading, it absolutely does.
So I think that it probably didn't bother me because I get exactly what Caleb's saying. But because I've read just enough, I've read just a little bit more than Caleb in manga. Not a crap ton more, but I've read a little bit more. So I probably didn't pick that up because I feel like that's the way they talk a lot in manga.
Yeah,
in
it
an
may be.
anime.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm not like obviously arguing your opinion on it at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, and maybe that Craig might have said it better. Maybe we're just used to that in manga translation.
Possibly. But I just got through reading All You Need Is Kill. I think the dialogue and that's perfect. Like I think it's just fine.
And for me, like I said, again, this is like me personally who've read a shit ton of manga over the years.
Yeah.
You will find like All You Need Is Kill and like Junji Ito, those aren't published in a weekly format.
No, for
from a mass audience produced for young and old alike, Shonen Jump.
Right.
And I feel like the writing in that style that the editors prefer is a bit more like probably
It's polished.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more of a
not-
graphic novel than it's written in graphic novel form versus a weekly.
And I'm just wanting to discuss like this just so people listening who might want to give it a try, who might be more like you know what you're getting into. Don't waste your time if that is like kind of the writing style. You know what I mean? Just like I mean like it's obviously not a waste of time to try anything, but if it just doesn't sound like your cup of tea because of the writing, it's probably not going to be your thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. For me, it's a very intense escape escape story. And for me, whether it's a dialogue or not, whatever is your taste, that's direct. It's caught me in immediately.
Yeah.
Just the concept, other than what Soylent Green is people, so it's not really something I've, it's not a concept or a danger I'm used to reading.
Well, and that may be the difference in 150 issues of reading versus 5.
Don't get me wrong, but obviously the first 5 caught me to read 150. And what I will say, especially if the concept sounds interesting, but also like maybe just like, them escaping the orphanage, I can't tell you the exact chapter the story changes and the world opens up, but it does. And it's a very intriguing world with a lot of twists and turns. Yeah. So, but Jerry, what you've how much you've read a little bit further, right?
Yeah, I've read. They haven't left that area yet.
Okay.
And it's mostly because I don't want to get like way far ahead because Steph and I are watching the anime right now,
right.
as it comes out. But and I'm trying to think of like the other series that I've watched that have really kind of made me think about this. And I can't think of any off the top of my head, but it's always like the child that's trying to outsmart the adult.
Right.
Where it's like this looming threat and like, do they know? And it's very suspenseful. And I've been enjoying it. I'm really, really intrigued to see the rest of the world opened up. Whenever you and I were first, talking about getting into this series and everything.
Yeah.
I was not expecting demons.
No.
It was a huge, crazy turn. I mean, I was expecting a lot of things, but like that was
Right, like the manga had been
interesting.
blowing up in Japan for a while, and the YouTuber reviewer that I watched, Giguk, will talk about that. And he says blow, but he never gave away that first chapter twist at the end. So I'm like, okay, it's good. But kind of like what you mentioned about the art, it didn't grab me at first either.
Yeah.
And I was like, the art doesn't look really up my cup of tea. And plus, like I said, kind of a kid's thing, which, the Shonen Jump will cover from everything from action to just slice of life kid comedy. And all he really said, well, this is blowing up big. I'm like, well, this didn't look that interesting. But when every new season of anime starts on Crunchyroll, I watch the first episode of every new show just to kind of see what's coming out and maybe see a new show I may not have grabbed just by going off the title. And I saw that. I remember them saying a lot of hype, watched it, and instantly hooked me in.
So, I don't disagree with Caleb's take on the first, in my case, episode, because I did cheat and watch the anime instead of the manga.
I mean, the anime is a fair adaptation. There were some things that they changed around. Like you said, they were introduced the other sister.
Yeah.
By the end of the third anime episode. But yeah, it's still a fair assessment, though.
So, and I think at one point I had texted Caleb, if it hadn't been for the purpose of the show, I probably would have stopped halfway through the first episode, because I felt like it was a kid's show. But then I remembered you telling me the premise of it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stick this. Plus, I need to know what's going on for the show. And then, by the end of it, I was like, okay, I can see me, I can see the appeal of this to certain people. It wasn't for me, but that doesn't mean it's not good. It's just not one that I will probably finish.
So I think were it me, and if I were if somebody's saying, hey, I'm going to read this thing, do you have any advice? My advice would be to start with issue number 2 or chapter number 2. You get everything you need as far as like setup wise. They recap it at the beginning of chapter 2. You don't go through, I think it's close to the regular chapters, I think are 19 pages.
Yeah.
Issue 1 is a little bit longer. It's closer to 25.
They did the same thing with the anime.
Yeah. Essentially the only 3 pages that did anything for me, and the first one was the last 3 pages.
Right.
Start with chapter 2. You get a full recap. You get a full character recap. They let you know everything that happened in chapter 1. It dives into a little bit of action, a little bit more. You still get the nuance. You still get the relationships. You still get the pivotal roles that each one of these characters play. And for me, I might have enjoyed chapters 2 through 5 more if I hadn't have read chapter 1 and been for my experience tainted a little bit by it. It's just because I just didn't enjoy the first one. Enjoyed 2 through 5 a lot more.
Right.
Still don't think it's necessarily my thing, but as far as the body of work and the experience of reading it goes, 2 through 5 was worth reading. For me, it was a good time. I didn't not appreciate it. The first issue, just no.
So because I'm watching the anime that's coming out now, and you're saying they're on chapter 100 and something or whatever, right? So they're that far in. Well, the anime is coming out now, so the animation on it is perfectly clean and nice. There's no problems with the artwork for the animation. So maybe start there.
And that's not the first time this has worked for us, because hell, you wouldn't guess it today hearing us talk about it. Me and Jerry both read the first chapter of My Hero Academia, and we didn't care.
Yeah.
We didn't continue. I think you went a little further than I did.
I think I read the first couple of chapters, and then I didn't even really start getting into it heavy until the first volume came out. Oh, okay. And then after I read the first 2 volumes, I was like...
Yeah, but by the anime, I was definitely in. Yeah. Well, sometimes the anime can draw you in.
We've said it before, the first arc of Tom King's Batman, I damn near cut the series from my pull list. Right. So, and now it's arguably... we're Animal Farm up in here. It's all good.
But... and that's also something that's really big about these Shonen Jump series and stuff like that is a lot of these creators on here, this is maybe their first thing. Yeah. So throughout the course of history for it, you really their style grows.
Yeah, they get better and better and better as they go
on. Because if you go back and you look at the first issue of One Piece and then look at it now, it's way different.
Well, think of it from the Americans. Sorry, Craig.
No, go ahead.
From the American perspective, think of The Simpsons. The art in The Simpsons season 1 is shit. Like, I'm sorry to all you Simpsons fans, but it is. It's not good animation. It's not good art. You go and watch The Simpsons now, and it's polished. It's smooth as fuck. It's a good time. Even if you don't like the show, you have to admit the animation's great. Same thing with a lot of manga.
Well, and think about issue number ones of comic books. How many times do we sit here and go, it was good, but it's just a setup book.
Right.
And really, that's what the first chapter of this was. It
absolutely.
was straight up a setup, but it just took a minute to get there. I wish that the reveal had happened halfway through it instead of at the end. I understand why they did it, because it's the cliffhanger. Hey, you're ending on a demon eating a kid, you know. So I understand what they did.
It's a little bit of a misdirection.
Yeah, it was.
That's
it was
fully
a
what
big,
they were going for. The what they twist kind of
Right.
movement. I think it also probably would have been. It's also what we say when they're like a Netflix series is too long, like going 30 or 40 pages in that first chapter. Probably could have been better off in this traditional 20 to 22.
Yeah.
So,
I understand everyone's points, but like I said, I wanted to cover this because I obviously became a big fan of it.
Yeah.
and I can
anime is
see
still going.
100% why you're a huge fan of it with your horror. You know, I can absolutely see you being 100% into this, and especially your love of Japanese horror. So,
Oh yes,
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
suspense in it.
Yeah, and it does a
really big
good
driving
job, at least in the anime. The second episode, especially, to me, did a good job of building the suspense.
right.
Again, with maybe follow Caleb's lead. If you watch the last 10 minutes of the first episode, and then watch, you know,
For sure. And just the last little note on it. Either way that you watch or read it, you're going to get a good experience if this is your cup of tea. And again, I'm shouting out to this YouTuber because he just nailed a lot of my thoughts. I'll have to just repeat him and give him credit. It's Gigook on YouTube. The anime is not like visually different than the manga in a sense. Like it's a straight adaptation, but it's like while the manga will paint a kind of a Wonderland large, it really shows the size of the orphanage and the beauty that they're living in and all that. While the anime really doesn't do a lot of those wide shots. There's a lot of tight claustrophobic feel. So like the tension in the anime almost does read more in that form than in the manga. So either way you want to read it or watch it, I recommend checking it out.
yeah, for sure.
Give it a chance. You might like it.
Yep.
So, well, what else did you read this week, Craig? Or not Craig, Sean.
You're looking at Sean and saying Craig.
I was looking at the thing anyway. I told you I'm off this morning. You can't have me being professional all the time. You got to give me a day.
Okay, I think we all know that all white people look alike. He gets us confused from time to time. It's okay.
What'd you read
All the
this?
straight white people.
I hate you guys.
No, you don't.
I don't. I love you. I just meant straight white people. That's what I meant by
Oh,
you guys.
yeah.
Sorry. No, just kidding. What'd you read this week, Sean?
The book I'm picking for this week was Heroes in Crisis #5. Again, I'm just, we're jumping on the Tom King hype train, of course. No surprise for me. But this book especially resonated with me just because there's some things I'm discovering that Tom King writes that makes me really happy. It's showing Booster Gold as a fuck up, Harley Quinn as the classic damaged Harley Quinn, and a good mystery because this is still just slowly unraveling of what's going on in there, and I've just thoroughly been enjoying it.
Nice.
It opens up with the much hated online Tom King 9-panel. Booster Gold is showing because we've seen he's already been through some shit already in this story. And this is like, as far as I can remember top of my head, the first time they've shown him in the confessional shots they've been doing throughout Heroes in Crisis. And he's talking about how there is a smudge on his, the yellow goggles that he wears when he's in uniform. And he's acknowledging I know it's not there, but it's blood. There's blood on my goggles. I wipe it and it looks clean, but I still see it. Showing that he is obviously pretty fucked up about what's been going on, which is rare for me, at least to my knowledge of Booster Gold, for him to ever admit any kind of weakness or, he's always a super cocky, super confident in himself.
Well, and a lot of times he's the comic relief in whatever he's in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which that turns into a beautiful double page spread, Wendy Freeman, of Booster and Blue Beetle sitting on the couch. And Jerry, I think you shared it, of a Twitter page where someone pointed out that throughout from the window to the ripped wallpaper to the pizza on the floor. The artist spelled out heroes in crisis.
Yeah. Will Eisner would be proud.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's awesome.
There's multiple artists, I think, on this book, which they've been doing. I'm trying to find out who wrote that one or who drew that particular spread. It shows
Clayman is doing the main art, and I'm trying to remember who's doing the. I want to say it's Mitch.
Right?
Yeah, Mitch Gerards. I think is doing the.
Either way, both are great artists.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, it's an amazing page. I just wanted to give credit because I really like that double page on it.
I think that particular page was Clayman.
Yeah, it's
because I think that Tom King gave him credit on Twitter for it.
Yeah.
Were they eating?
They're eating pizza, drinking some beer.
No, were they eating carrots and all of the 9 panels? Oh, fantastic!
But it goes into just Booster wanting to fix what's wrong. No, he's still, like I said, they still haven't clearly said what really went down with the deaths of Arsenal and not Kid Flash, it's Flash.
Wally Flash.
Wally West Flash. Yeah. I can't keep all their titles.
He's just the Flash now.
He's just the Flash, right? So there's 2 just the Flashes, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking DC.
Oh, there's been 5 at one point.
Yeah,
that's
all just called the Flash. I know.
that's nothing too.
Right.
What, you just shout,
the fact that we're only at 2 is amazing.
Try calling someone Green Lantern these days.
Oh my god.
But Booster Gold is basically just going on like he wants to fix things and set things right. Blue Beetle, being the good friend that he is, knows like you're too dumb to fix anything. You know you shouldn't be doing this shit. He goes, yeah, but I'm gonna do something so stupid they won't even expect me to do it. He's like, that's a good point. Blue Beetle being the good supporting friend.
It's good to see those 2 back together again.
For sure.
I mean,
this is the first time they've been together in a long time.
Hasn't been. Yeah. It's always been a duo, as far as I know. But I haven't, admittedly, I haven't read a whole lot.
Well,
of them in there.
I don't.
Booster Gold series after 52,
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I think, the last time, other than like some random issues here and there, where they got into some shenanigans.
Oh, okay.
That's my shit, though. Fucking love it.
We then cut to a character I'm not familiar with at all, but knowing Tom Kane, he likes to pull deep from the DC universe. Commander Steel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Justice Society.
Yeah.
He's actually in Legends of Tomorrow. He's one of the main characters right now.
Nice. He's in the 9-page confessional. This time about he died fighting. He goes, I don't know what it called itself. Some android type of mechanism, one of Dr. Ivo's. And he just talking about and this is like the whole point of what Sanctuary is, them to get this off their chest. This dude literally died and now he's back. There's still got to be some kind of trauma to it. And it's just just kind of a breakdown of where he is mentally right now. Then we cut to Batman with Skeets, which we all know are just looking at him suspiciously as fuck these days. Talking with Batgirl. This again, they're just trying to figure out what's going on with all that. Kind of more going back to the Superman and Lois with the aftermath that Lois said that that he knows that she's leaking the story what Sanctuary is. Superman clearly in conflict about being the husband, being the hero, but also being a reporter and understanding. Which personally, in my view, Lois being kind of a dick about leaking that story about superheroes and their personal issues.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so it's her job to do that, right? And he knows that. He knew that when he married her, and she did go to him before she released it to give him a heads up. And if she holds on to that information, it could come back to hurt her in other ways. So, right. I mean, I don't necessarily think she's being a dick. I think she's doing everything she's supposed to do as a journalist. Yeah, I think she's doing what she should be doing. And I think the fact that she gave her, because outside of that world, there's only like 3 people that know he's Superman.
Right,
know, so if she withholds it, she's actually putting him more in danger of people trying to figure out why she ultimately withheld that information. So that's the way I took that.
That's like just me and my lack of love for journalism. I think shining through there, but I get your points. Absolutely. But, for me, it's also that part of the whole patient-doctor confidentiality.
Well, that's true. But
I know we're affecting not just Joe Schmo having to talk with therapists. These are heroes who kill and are responsible for lives.
If he had given her the information, like his pillow talk, and then she had ran with it, that would be a different scenario, in my opinion. This was...
Well, not only that, but if we're going to talk about doctor-patient confidentiality, there was no doctor it was a bunch of people running an off-site house
Right.
for the purposes of
Right.
doing something. None of them are medically trained. None of them are like, no one there is actually set up to deal with this kind of trauma. And they're essentially working on a nuclear bomb.
And we don't know who released the video yet. I'm assuming it's Skeets, but we don't know
Yeah.
who released the video yet. So there's
Absolutely. Then we cut to another character I'm not familiar with, Solstice.
also from Justice Society.
Yeah, you can tell I don't read Justice Society. She's, I guess, in what is probably her normal superhero look of like this all black with some blue hues, glowing eyes and stuff.
She's
And it shows
literally
her-
like a galaxy.
Yeah. And it shows her kind of turning back and she's there. I did it. I told her, I guess she's been having trouble changing back to her normal self. Just she seemed like really happy. Then all of a sudden turns right back to it and she's just super pissed by the end of it. Again, Tom King is laying out these cookie crumbs of what meaning they might have, if any. It might just be showing what the heroes are going through while they're in Sanctuary. We don't know if it's necessarily all part of the big picture of what this whole series is going to be about. Cut to Batgirl with Skeets as like, she's telling Skeets like, I just need you to work with me here. She's tethering him down to, they're in a children's like playground. There's like slides and the little spinny thing with the handles. I never know what that thing was called.
Merry-go-round.
That doesn't have horses.
Doesn't have horses,
I know,
but,
but it's still
it's
a merry-go-round. That makes
merry-go-round,
sense. I've never called it that.
they're just creepy. It's the perfect
It's
scene for an
danger.
apocalypse.
It's very dangerous.
It's dangerous. I'm surprised those things are still around, if they even are.
We tried to kill each other on them as kids.
Anyways, go ahead, Chuck. We sidebarred there.
No, it's fine. I started it 'cause I don't know what the fuck a merry-go-round is. It doesn't have horses. But is Batgirl wanting to get some answers from Skeets? Because he's relayed a lot of information, and obviously Batgirl is very suspicious of him. She, like I said, she tied him down. He's like, I don't know what you want from me, kind of a deal. Like, he's obviously playing denial of like there's anything more that he knows that's not what he's given. And to which we turn that like Batgirl's not going to be the one interrogating. Cut to a full page spread of Harley Quinn with a giant hammer in her classic outfit.
Which just gave you a hard on.
It absolutely did, because that just does it for me. Fucking love the drawing, and with just singing the song and only her crazy ass can do. I have to read it. It's Skeeter parking meter had a secret, tried to keep her. He told girl Bat he'd never tell, so Harley sent him straight to hell. And you just see a bottom panel of Skeets going, oh, censored cuss word. Which, of course, that just turned the whole book for me, because Harley Quinn and Batgirl, which we've seen earlier, they were working together, that she is still working with her, and they know that Skeets knows more than what he's letting on.
Yeah.
Cut to Flash looking like working in his lab, probably trying to work on figuring out this mystery that happened with Flash dying. It's so confusing. That Booster just busts in through the window. Like, basically, he's like interrupting Flash's detective work in here. To which Flash quickly just puts him on his ass. Flash is just trying to tell him not to move. He goes, and Booster just zaps him with his ability, knocking him on his ass. And he's like, it worked? Like, Booster's Gold, surprised he even did something successfully. Should tell you much about Booster Gold if you don't know. But it comes from another confessional. Then we go into Superman doing a press conference, obviously talking about the story that Lois leaked. So they're addressing the public, as like I said, and as y'all point out, and it's a very good point. The superheroes need to be publicly addressing issues like this. Probably it's something the public needs to know.
Well, they need to be held accountable for their actions,
yeah.
and that's the whole point of it.
And what we get to after that, though, is Booster and Beetle in Beetle's lab. And Booster's actually on to something, which is shocking as hell, because as Beetle reminds him, you are the dumbest person I know. So if I didn't see something, there's no way you did. And the big thing is that Booster realizes that the body of the Flash at Sanctuary is 5 minutes too old.
Yep.
So now we're getting, as typically with Booster Gold, we're getting some timey-wimey, spacey-wacy bullshit.
We're starting to see, it's starting to unravel now. We're starting to see the plot come together. We're starting to find out what's going on with Wally Wood, why DC is, has brought this character back.
West.
And Wally West, sorry.
like-
Wally Wood's been dead.
Wally
so-
Wood's a different book.
well, that's a person. He just one of the best. Oh, he's so fucking good. Anyway, why they would bring this character back and just kill him 5 seconds later.
Yeah.
You're starting to see all of this kind of culminate to the story that Tom's
Literally
telling.
5 seconds later.
Right. And we just start cutting to just several shots of multiple different characters, all just like
What's that? Adam Strange,
Adam Strange,
Mr.
yeah,
Terrific. I can't see.
you got like Batgirl and Harley running through the city
Yeah.
with Batgirl reminding Harley that she promised not to kill anyone, and Harley just does the best she can. Till we get like
Shining Knight.
Yeah, a
man.
beautiful like Frazetta tribute style.
At first I thought he was standing on Statue of Liberty with a dragon in the background, but it's
You said a Shining Knight.
Yeah.
See, 'cause I'm looking at the page. I don't remember him actually saying. I didn't know who that was.
it's Shining Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of just basically just talking to him, and it's it does. But it's just like a lot of good spreads through there, and ending with Harley and Batgirl finding Booster, and after dealing with Skeets, it become obviously they're figuring that Booster fucked up something with the time travel, and the very last page just ends with a Harley Quinn confession at Sanctuary, and this just epitomizes what people I think have kind of forgotten about Harley and Joker's relationship is just her telling a story of Joker telling her a joke. It ends with him basically beating the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And powerful book, excellent book. Again, Tom King is God in writing for me right now.
Yeah, dynamic writer.
And like I said, it's issue 5 of 9. If you haven't jumped on it, at least get in trade, because this whole thing I feel is going to be a very good read.
Well, it's amazing all of the complaints over Bat 50 and what's actually coming out of Bat 50.
It's true.
Absolutely.
That's very true.
All of this is coming out of Bat 50. There's some whole bunch of stuff in Batman right now that's coming out of it. Never judge an overarching story off of one issue.
Oh yeah, it doesn't taint the run
No.
just because it wasn't a good issue, but it's solid. What'd you read this week, brother?
I read actually a couple of books, but I went back and forth between Red Sonja and Oberon.
Yeah,
Oberon was good.
I'm going to talk about Oberon.
Red Sonja was good.
Both of them were amazing. So, Oberon, Aftershock Comics, Ryan Parrott, Milos Slovakovich, Charles Pritchett are the creators on it. This is a story of a deposed fairy king, Oberon, and a human teenage girl named Bonnie. She's homeschooled. She really has no friends outside of her family and this really old librarian that she visits on a daily basis because she's super intelligent, and this is what she does for fun, is goes to the librarian to museums. One night she's leaving the library and she's attacked by this mythical looking fantastic gold beast type thing.
Garbage golem.
It is a garbage golem is what it is. It's the rot something or other. So, and she's attacked by this. She's running, and you don't know who this guy is yet, but he shows up and he says, "Get in my cloak," which is, freaky as hell. Some dude telling a little girl to get in his cloak, but she's like, "Oh hell, I'm going to either die or, this pervert's going to do something." So she jumps in his cloak, and it takes her to Fairyland, which, we come to find out through the story that he is the king, or was the king of Fairyland, and has been deposed. We don't know why, but it becomes very...
I mean, have you met Claudia from Fairyland?
So he kind of starts to show his true colors. He tells her some truths about her real life that she doesn't really believe, but it's just got enough truth in it that it makes her go back home and start investigating. And when she goes back home, he's like, "I'm not going to hold you here. If you want to go back home, I'll take you back home." And he gives her a bell and he says, "If you need me, ring it 3 times and I'll come save you." So she goes back home and she starts investigating what's going on in her life, and come to find out, as I said, there's just enough truth in the things he told her that she believes him. And her parents, I'm doing quotation marks, show up and start asking her what the heck's going on, and she's like, "Get away from me," rings the bell. Dude shows up, takes her back to Fairyland, and that's kind of where it ends. But there's a whole lot that goes on outside of that. That's just kind of the rough overview of this. This book, first let me talk about the story and the art. The art is amazingly done. It's beautifully colored. It's just really, really well put together across the board. He just does a great job of hooking you and drawing you into this world. You care about what's happening with Bonnie, and then you've got the art that's matching it. So the two, there's so much emotion throughout this book, and how it's shown and how it's portrayed both in the story and in the art. And even though this comes across as a very traditional Joseph Campbell hero's journey entrance setup book, it's done in such a way that you don't feel like you've read it before. You feel like you know the story, don't get me wrong, but it's being done in a new way. So it doesn't really, sometimes you start to read something and you go, oh, this is just going to be the hero's journey. I've seen it 1,000 times. Well, there's a reason why those tropes exist. It's because they're good tropes. Yeah. It's a good way to tell a story. The thing about it is making it original. And I feel like what they've done on this is they've made it original. The art on anything that's fantasy in that book especially is just amazing. And again, the humans are great, but when he's showing you stuff that happens in the fantasy realm, it's really just amazing. It's,
nice. They get into a pretty great thing with unicorns having the taste of
man
flesh.
Yeah. She's like, oh, unicorns? And he's like, yeah, you don't want to go over to them. And she's like, but why not? And he's like, once they've tasted human flesh, they never want anything else. And it shows the unicorn and he's got vampire fangs.
I wonder if the unicorns are like raising kids in schools.
They might be. So, so yeah, it's, it was a good, solid first issue. Aftershock just keeps nailing these first issues that hook you into the series. They're getting good writers. They're getting good artists. They're doing what it takes to get people to buy. If you'll buy the first book, you'll enjoy the series for the most part. So, I give it 4 out of 5 crumbles or, stabs or whatever you want to go buy these days.
And I actually had debated on doing this book too. I really enjoyed it. There was this line that he said in here, and I don't know if he's like, they're quoting it from someone else, but I really liked it. It's, life is a page to be turned or torn out. Don't volunteer yours for the latter.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just really, really like that. Whenever he's just trying to convince her that,
But that's a huge line because later the way she realizes that her world is a lie is he tells her that even her books in her library are watching her. And she goes and she rips out a page out of one of her books and the books all come to life and start attacking her.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So that, he implants all these little seeds into her mind to really start manipulating her. And then he's got like a helper that's like, oh, well, maybe we should just tell her the truth. And he grabs the helper and he's like, you ever tell her the truth and I'll kill you right now. So there's some nefarious reasons. There's a reason he's been deposed. Of course, he doesn't see himself as a tyrant. But
he sounds like a very Machiavellian figure.
Yeah, I mean, yes, for sure.
Well, and just kind of like the story of Oberon, in history, was it Midsummer's Night's Dream or whatever? He was a big character in that. And him just kind of like sort of stretching the truth to get someone on his side.
Which
or to
she even
help
points
him.
out. She's like, you're a fairy. Fairies lie to get what they want. Which, makes this the second book that we've talked about now that have Macbethian have Shakespearean references with Macbeth in the out damn spot with Booster Gold not being able to get the blood off of his goggles and now this. But yeah, it's very much got that feel and it's maybe is very much going to be a modern retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream. But it's done very, very well.
Yeah.
So
Aftershock killing it.
Yeah, and I was going to recommend it to you if you hadn't read it. So I was surprised, or not surprised. I'm glad you did read it because I knew you would be one that Jerry liked as well.
Are you familiar with either one of these creators? Because I've never heard of them before.
I have not either,
they're
and I
new
didn't have a
people.
chance. I was going to look them up this morning to see what else they had worked on, and I didn't have a chance. I got busy and didn't, but I don't know if they're new or if I just haven't heard of them before, but man, you can tell it's digital art. It has that digital art feel. But that's not a bad thing when it's done well.
No, especially not when it's that cartooning style.
And it's drawn that way. But again, the fantasy realm is where the artist drew me in. And he does his own colors as well. I'm not going to try and say his last name again. But he does the colors well too. So it's a very, very pretty book. And the story, like I said, it's easy on number ones, like we talked about earlier, that it's just a setup book and you don't feel drawn in. You don't necessarily care until there's some hook at the end that captures you. This one halfway through the book, I cared what happened to Bonnie. I wanted to know what her story was. I wanted to know. It became real apparent real quick that everybody in this universe was lying to her. Whether it was Oberon, whether it was her parents, her sister, no one's giving her the full picture of the truth. So I'm in to see what her real truth is.
It's weird that you're reading a book where aliens don't invade the world.
Not everything I read is about aliens.
I know, I'm just
damn
fucking
it.
with you.
In this case, it's the Fairy King.
I'm leaving that one alone.
It wasn't you, Caleb.
I actually need to borrow that from you because I didn't get it. So if you don't mind, I want to read that.
Yeah, Jerry, just hand it to him.
Sweet.
Yeah, so, again, 4 out of 5 crumble, stabs, stars, whatever ranking system you're using these days.
Nice.
So my book, and I know Caleb read it, and I think Craig did, was Champions number 2.
Yeah.
I actually went over Champions number 1, which, is kind of like a soft reboot of the series with the same characters, same creative team, everything of that nature. It is Jim Zub, Steve Cummings, color artist is Marcio Menez, and VC's Clayton Cowles' letter. So this actually picks up, if you remember from the first issue, they have expanded their team like a crazy amount. Like they've got multiple teams now. They're doing all these missions at once. We get to that point in that first issue where our core team, the ones we know and love, Miss Marvel, Spider-Man, Sam, Braun, Viv, Ironheart, Snowguard, Wasp, they're carrying out their mission of stopping Zags. I don't know how to. It's a lot of Z's and X's in there. He's basically supercharged electricity.
Yeah, he's an old character.
Yeah, he feeds off of electricity. So we go back to that mission that something apparently happened on, because all we saw was the beginning of it and then them celebrating at the end. And something was going on with Miles and with Braun that we couldn't
both
figure
just went
out.
to their rooms,
and
and we
Mephisto
didn't-
pops
yeah.
up at the end of it to talk to Miles. So we go back to the beginning of this fight, and they're struggling with this guy. He's living lightning. What do you do against that? Braun's got a device that he's working on. Miles saves some people. Him and Miss Marvel save some people. Get him out of this line of fire from this thing, and it's just going crazy. And he gets supercharged. I think he takes energy out of their main power grid and gets supercharged and explodes.
Yeah.
It's bad. Like,
Yeah, it's real bad.
people
Bad things happen.
people die.
Yeah.
Everyone in the team is essentially dead except for Miles and Braun.
Yeah.
That's when Mephisto shows up, and he's pretty much just talking to him, and he's like, I can change this. I don't have anything to do. I can just do this for you. And they're like, no, you want us to sell our soul or anything? He's like, no.
Souls are boring. I don't
Yeah,
need
he's
souls.
like, do you know how many people sell me their souls a day? And they're both really broken up, and Braun's like, no, don't do it. It's some kind of trick. And Miles just is just like, he's talking to Braun. He's like, if you already know what frequency you need to have this battery on, so you can do it. And Miles just makes the deal. And cause he's just too heartbroken about losing everybody. Like they're holding Kamala Khan and Viv's, dead bodies in their hands.
Yeah.
And it's just really heartbreaking and morbid. And Mephisto makes this deal with them, and you see where all these other characters of Magic Descent are feeling the pressure of whatever Mephisto's doing to rewrite all of this. And it pops up, and it's the start of the mission. Everything's fine. They slam it in there. He calculates it and saves the day, and everything seems good. And they're like, that's what we do. We help. They don't say anything to Viv or Kamala, and you think everything's okay, and they save the day. But then you see this one arm under some rubble, and it actually, you wouldn't, if you don't pay attention too much to what's going on in the book, you don't really recognize it. But it's actually one of the people that Spider-Man saved earlier on.
I was wondering whose it was. I had went back through, flipping through, trying to find that arm.
It's she actually, like, he saves her, and she's like, oh, thank you, 1,000 blessings to you, Mr. Spider, and stuff. And he's like, oh, that's, what we do. It ended up being her that died, and it kind of foreshadows because it's the last panel that it shows.
Because Mephisto doesn't do anything for free.
Right.
There's always a cost.
So there's going to be some kind of crazy repercussions, and we've already seen it with the team. But like the art and the panels, they've got this single panel of Miles holding Kamala's body essentially among all this rubble.
Yeah,
and
there's some beautiful pages in there.
It kind of like every now and then it'll go back to a flashback that character had with the person that they found and everything, and it's just really like emotional.
Jim Zub, he can write champions forever, and I will never complain.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. This is one of those situations. So we read the Champions #1. You went over on the show, and we had that conversation at the end of it about Mephisto and with Miles. And there was an issue in the last volume where Miles basically survived a school shooting, and we thought it had something to do with that. Turns out it doesn't. Like that's one of those things where we were speculating and it didn't that we know of.
Well, he wasn't technically in the school shooting,
right. He was not there. He has a lot of guilt about not being able to save.
Because he wasn't there to save them.
Not being able to save anybody. And we thought it had something to do with that because they never really it seemed like they brought that issue up and they moved right into a different arc and they never touched on it. But I like where he's going with this. I like what he's doing. Jim Zub he's a great writer and he's got a great team on this book. But what's the whole point of being a hero? The whole point, like what makes a hero? A hero has to be willing to sacrifice themselves and arguably their team for the sake of the people that don't have the power to do so. And I mean, Miles is going to be dealing with a crisis of conscience because what Mephisto
traded his teammates.
Yeah, what Mephisto is doing is a life for a life, and so the people that they signed on to rescue, the people they signed on to save, he got them killed for the sake of his friends, and it's a very it's going to have everything to do with their mentality as children. These are not adults. Right. Like, we're the book that Sean just went over. These are adults dealing with these crises and dealing with the ramifications from it. These are children who are making these same sacrifices and having to make these same life or death decisions.
Well, that's kind of like him making the deal with Mephisto.
Yeah.
It's most more adult heroes or whatever would know better and think about this and
at least you hope
the consequences of their actions and everything like that.
Yeah, it's Mephisto preying on people who aren't
emotionally ready to make those decisions.
Exactly, and doing a really weird job of it. And what do you think of when you think of Spider-Man? Even it doesn't matter if you're thinking of Miles. It doesn't matter if you're thinking of Pete.
I mean, you have the whole thing that responsibility, and you had Peter make a deal with Mephisto that cost him everything years back. Now you've got Miles doing it, and Jim Zub he's pulling at your heartstring in this book. He's really showing some depth to these characters. And making it more about than just about. I mean, they bring in a villain that you don't hear much of, and
I love Zizix.
Yeah, bring in this villain you don't see much of, and you have this epic fight. All these consequences that happen from it. It's very almost Tom King-ish, really. To be honest with you, what's going on in Champions right now. Which is weird that Tom King has become a verb.
Yeah, it's a crazy, interesting, and very deep writing with great art.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready to see where they go with this.
Yeah, he's got it. I don't know what it is, but he's definitely got it.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it, man. It's just a great run. So, well, I guess it's my turn.
Yes,
I think
it is your turn.
Yes.
Okay.
Talk about a book.
I am going to talk about a book. So I'm going to talk about another #1 that seems to, be kind of. I know, Craig, you just went over one.
#1, number 6.
Well,
#2.
It's one of those situations.
Well, I mean, they had that 5-issue miniseries, so technically,
I feel like so I don't. The reason I say that like I do is because it doesn't feel like a #1. So the book I'm going to talk about is Daredevil #1. It's by Chip Zdarsky, Marco Cicchetto, Sonny Go did the colors, and Clayton Cowell did the letters because he's the hardest working letterer in comics.
Before you get into it, I'm just because I did read the previous run by Charles Soule. the reason it doesn't feel like a number one is because Zdarsky's not saying, I'm just going to start over and do what I want to with this character. So
well, and that's a little bit of what I was going to get into.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's because it does pick up. It does tie into that former run. I like that we're not. It's not necessarily a fresh start with him. So just a little bit of the story where it picks up. Matt Murdock he's had a rough go of it. As Craig told you about the last issues leading up to this, he got hit by a truck, was in a coma for a little bit. Wilson Fisk is still mayor of New York. He was mayor of New York for a little bit. He's not having a good time. He got a little fucked up. Yeah. And as he's trying to get over that and get back into his life, he's doing it by going back to his roots. And you know what? Chip Zdarsky is doing that same thing with the character. So he takes him. Matt walks into a bar, meets a nice lady, has to explain that he's blind. If you've never read a Daredevil comic before, you can pick this up, and even though it does tie into the series before, you're not going to get lost. I know that because I didn't read the series before, and kind of just picked up right where it left off. And it gives you everything you need to know about Matt. He's a lawyer. He's a ladies' man. He talks about some of the secrets that he's keeping, and it just, the whole mythos of it unfolds really, really well. Chip does a great job, to the point that he even does what all good Daredevil writers should do, and he goes into a flashback pretty quickly. He takes it back to the religious aspect of it. Matt is a staunch Catholic, and that, like, his Catholicism, it is a lot of his personal identity. And
it's got to be part of his character.
It absolutely does. And this book has strong ties to it. If you have watched the Daredevil series on Netflix, I think if that brings you to this comic, and I don't know that it brings anybody to comics, but fingers crossed, it gives you a little bit of that. He's a young man. This is prior to his accident. He goes through a couple of different flashbacks. One was prior to the accident, one after his accident. Ties into his belief, his faith, his relationship with his father, his relationship with his pastor, with the priest, and with his diocese at the church. The seeds of his identity are planted, and it's not done so that you feel bored. Because I never felt bored. At least I don't think you would. I never felt bored.
I didn't feel bored.
And it's done in a way that's like, okay, like you're giving me just enough to carry on with this story, and then because Marco Cicchetto is a badass and a rock star, it jumps out of the flashback and into the present. And hey, this girl that he met at a bar, she's a little bit DTF. She came back to hizzy. They did the thing, did it right, because she's happy. She's had a great time, and she's just really interested in this person that she met, to the point that she's like, hey, I've got to go because I've got to go to work early. If you give me your number, I'll text you or call you, because I can't see text messages. And he's like, yeah, I mean, maybe. I'm not necessarily in that place either. And she kind of fetishizes him a little bit. She's like, hey, well, I've never been with a blind guy before. And he's like, yeah, don't do that. Which I can imagine. That's a thing. And this is where Chip shines, is because Chip's like, no. Like, it's not because you're blind that I want you. It's because you think I'm beautiful and you can't see me. That was a great moment. Yeah. It's just really reaching into the heart of this character and into the heart of this world, and it kind of takes him aback a little bit. But what's a good Daredevil comic without a little ass kicking?
Yeah, of course.
So we finally get to where we're going. I've been waiting on this moment all issue. He puts his suit on. This is the first time really since he came out of a coma that he's getting back into the thing, getting back into the grind of what he's doing in Hell's Kitchen. And people have forgotten the Daredevil, so to speak. They're not scared. Like, he has this Batman moment.
Sorry, I thought of Gordon Ramsay for a second there.
He has this Batman moment where he's like, they're not scared anymore. I need to make them scared. So he dons his suit, which is, by the way, a great interpretation of his suit. It's not necessarily just the leather-clad outfit that you've seen from the past. It's pieced together. It's a little bit ninja, a little bit superhero. Just a really, really good interpretation of that outfit.
You and I talked about it. You could tell all the different materials that are on the gloves and the boots and everything.
Beautiful texture, beautiful texture to it. And he's going about his Daredevilish time. He's jumping from building to building, except he's not 100%. And you get that. He jumps and he slips a little bit. He's not where he needs to be, and he knows that about himself. But as he's on a rooftop, he hears 3 blocks away there's a robbery in progress. A couple of knuckleheads are robbing a liquor store. So he's got to go stop it. Like, this is him dipping his toe back into the water, and he basically gets his ass kicked. I don't know if there's any other way to say that. He's not ready. He thank God it wasn't Zizix or wasn't anybody else from the Marvel Universe with any kind of powers, or he'd have just died again and just maybe stayed dead this time. Yeah. But it's just a couple of dudes from the neighborhood, a couple of Hell's Kitchens assholes, and they're robbing a liquor store. And there's 3 of them, and 2 of them stomp the living fuck out of Matt, and the third one's kind of a lookout that he gets a little roughed up a little bit. Cops show up. Matt decides, hey, I've got to get out of here. He goes on. He goes about his merry way. He goes to bed. He's had a really bad night. He's feeling down about himself. He's doing the self-deprecating Catholic guilt thing that that is such a large part of. Hey, it's a big part of his history. That's really the last time you see him in the issue, except for the last page. Where you go from there is you go into Wilson Fisk's office, who is still the mayor, still is criminalizing heroes. APB out on all capes, do what you want to do with them, lock them up, throw them away. And Wilson is getting his daily rundown as any head of a city or a country should do, any major leader. And he stops because he catches a little bit of news. It's local news. And it's talking about this robbery. And one of the men has died. Mm-hmm. Assumably has been killed by Matt. You don't know that for sure. But you can put 2 and 2 together. Not purposefully. Matt did not kill this, but it's passively. He's got billy clubs.
Well, it showed Matt hit the guy in the head to get out of there, and then the guy died from brain damage.
Exactly.
So again, it's an assumption,
right? And so when Matt wakes up, he's going to have to deal with this, and he's going to have to deal with the fact that Matt doesn't want to kill. That's not his. He's not nearly as staunch about Batman. I don't know that he's going to feel really bad, but now he's an active murder suspect. Mm-hmm. And he's got a couple of pretty savvy detectives who are on this case, which you also meet. New characters dropped in. This guy, this new detective he's doing things by the book. He's very I'm a cop. He's very proud of being a cop. Mm-hmm. Just got transferred in from Chicago. Comes in and just he knows there's some corruption within the police force, and he's not having it. He's not about that life, and he's going after Matt. And he doesn't think of heroes the way that your average person would think of heroes. He thinks of them as vigilantes. They are criminals. They are not licensed. They are not police, and he is going to stop them. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see where they go with this. I haven't read a lot of Daredevil in the past. I've read the Frank Miller stuff. I read some of the Ann Nocenti stuff right after Frank Miller. I've picked it up here and there. It's not really my guy. This is an excellent first issue.
Yeah. So, did you read the miniseries?
Yeah, I have them. Yeah. Okay. I just haven't read them yet.
Yeah, you really need to, because it explains all the reasons he's not ready for this. Yeah. It really sets up this book really, really well.
And I think there's 5 issues to that.
5 issues, yeah. This is looking like it may end up being one of my favorite Daredevil runs. Everything right now says yes. I mean, of course, we're a miniseries and 1 issue in, but I think Zdarsky has a grasp on Daredevil that very few people have had in recent memory. I like Charles Soule's stuff fine till the end, but even then I didn't have this sort of feel to it. And
it feels dark. It feels dark. It feels gritty.
Which is what Daredevil should feel.
Right. And we've talked about this before, how a lot of times in comics, they can be lighthearted and fun, but on some level, it's rare when we get any type of danger anymore. It's rare when we feel like there's anything at stake for these characters. I'm legitimately worried for my boy Matt here. I'm worried that there's some ramifications that are going to come out of this that he's going to have to figure out how to get out of.
And again, that miniseries, the things he's dealing with mentally coming into this issue, he's not going to wake up in a good place in issue number 2. I mean, between the stuff he's dealing with from the repercussions from his injuries and the Catholicism and the guilt that comes with that naturally anyways, he doesn't typically kill, you're right, but it doesn't mean he hasn't killed, or he wouldn't if it was for the greater good. I don't think he's going to see that killing this
bank robber,
this street level thug, is for the greater good.
Right.
So he's going to struggle with that from all of those other reasons as well.
Exactly.
So Now, was it going to turn out to be him? It may be. It may not be. We don't know. It could have been one of the cops that showed up on the scene. We have no idea. So,
if nothing else, it's going to be it's going to leave a feeling of negligence on his point.
Yeah.
That's really going to fuck with him because he does have a conscience.
Yep.
That's at the end of the day, that he wants to do right. He wants to be good for his city, for his neighborhood, for his people. He wants to protect.
Yep.
And he's also a lawyer. Like that's the part you can't forget. He has a love for the law. Murder is illegal. Granted, a lot of things that Daredevil does is illegal, but he does have a love for justice. And he's not, like you said, this is not something that he's going to be able, these are not waters he's going to navigate easily. Mm-hmm. And I think we're in for a bumpy ride, but it's going to be a bumpy ride that we're going to really enjoy.
If this turns into like a 3 or 4 issue thing of him like taking himself to court, I'm out.
No,
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think Chip's going to do that.
Yeah.
But also, so we've talked about Chip enough. He's got his due. Let's talk about Checchetto for a minute.
Yeah.
Checchetto and Go. They go hard in this book. This art is phenomenal. So when you're dealing with a book that is about a blind man, I want to see you play with shadow. Mm-hmm. I want to see things obfuscated. And they do that in spades. The scenes where they're in Matt's apartment and the moonlight is shining through and it almost looks like a cage, which is what he feels like. Mm-hmm. Sean, you like to talk about claustrophobia in books, like that's, or in anime and everything. You that's one of your favorite, you've done it several times where you've talked about it. That's one of your favorite emotions. You talk about claustrophobic, this feeling of in an open room that's arguably designed for ease of access for a blind man. Feels tight. It feels like a cage. He feels trapped within himself and within his world. And they accomplish that with shadow. It's insane.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know that I've seen Daredevil art this dynamic since Frank Miller.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's just, I can't add really anything to what you said. It's beautifully done. It really is.
Well, and so since we're going to finish with art, I don't think you can talk about this book without talking about the story at the end of it, which was written and drawn by Chip. I would read a story like this,
just completely.
Period. I love, don't get me wrong, I think Checchetto is doing a great job, and he actually reminds me a lot of Clayman. He's not quite Clayman level, but his style reminds me of Clayman quite a bit. But what Chip does in the back, playing with lines and colors and the Doppler effect, is stunning, and he does it in a way that he draws what a person with sight would see on the left-hand side, and he gives you what Daredevil sees on the right-hand side. And the action syncs up. Mm-hmm. It's brilliant. Mm-hmm. I would read an entire art book of this with no words.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wonder because the first time you see that detective, they're going over a case of possibly Daredevil beat the shit out of somebody. Was that backup story this?
No, that was
situation?
The case from the liquor store robbery. That's what the Daredevil.
That was the second case that we saw the guy. I'm talking about when we first saw the detective and somebody was talking about Daredevil jumping them basically.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and check that one out.
Yeah. I mean, that's just kind of what I thought maybe.
The guy that had the broken leg at the beginning or something that he had his leg broken.
Yeah, and they were talking about it was Daredevil, and that's whenever we first found out about this new detective and how he feels about vigilantes and stuff like that.
Well, and that was essentially to introduce you to the new detective.
Yeah.
So while we're done talking about that, I don't think it's fair to talk about the good things of the book when you don't mention stuff that's wrong with it. Mm-hmm. And I want to give credit where credit's due with this. It completely, I fanboy guys were talking about this past week. Do detectives wear street cop uniforms? When do they start doing that? Because I don't think they do.
I didn't see a detective wearing a street cop
uniform.
So
when you get the new detective in the book, and he comes in and he's talking to the two uniformed officers, he calls them detectives.
Oh, okay.
He's talking to them as detectives, and they're straight up just beat cops. Mm-hmm. So that was a mistake that was either a mistake in the lettering or it was a mistake in the script to where either Chip did not tell Checchetto that, hey, you need to draw these people as detectives and not street cops, or they changed that later in post. I noticed it when I was reading it and it felt weird, but I didn't realize till I was listening to people talk about it.
I missed it because the assumption to me is that they were street beat cops because otherwise they would have told the other detective to get the fuck off their case.
Well, she did.
Yes, but she didn't have any authority to that.
Right.
Whereas she would have if she were a detective.
Well, I say he did. It's the two beat cops are a guy and a girl. And the reason, as they're loading the guy into the ambulance, they're trying to hide the story because it's not going to go anywhere.
Right.
And, just ignore it. And that's where you get
they're pro Daredevil or pro.
I think they're just pro not paperwork.
Yeah. Well, and the one seems to be a little dirty anyway.
Yeah.
So.
He is. And that's where you really see the stuff that this new detective from Chicago is made of, because he gets in that guy's face and he's like, no, we're going to do this the way we need to. And if you don't like it, I can beat the hell out of you.
Yeah. So I think if the other guy had been a detective, he would have had some more bite in their stand. So to me, I think it was probably.
It seems like you could have caught that and fixed it with one word. Like you just change it into officer instead of detective.
Yeah.
Yeah, a quick Google search says that all detectives are always in plain clothes.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were definitely not. And again, so credit where credit's due. I didn't hit that one on my own, but
I did not catch that.
With that knowledge, I don't think it's fair to talk about the good things and not acknowledge something that is wrong with the book. So I'm hooked. I immediately read this, and like I say, because Daredevil, I bought this book so I could talk about it. Mm-hmm. Didn't know if it was going to be good. Didn't know if I was going to hate it, love it, or whatever. I bought it because I wanted. It was number one. It's a Daredevil. It's Chip Zdarsky. We need to talk about it.
I probably wouldn't have talked about it because I feel like I talk about Daredevil all the time.
So we'll see, and I never do. So I was thinking maybe bring a new perspective to it. Yeah. But I immediately called my local comic shop and said, hey, you need to put this in my pull list. Yeah. And I had them go back and pull the 5 issues of the miniseries. Okay. So I'm looking forward to digging into that.
Yeah.
But that's my book. I really encourage people to put this on their pull lists.
Yeah, definitely should.
I think it's solid.
If you like the television show, you will like this book because it's got that same dark feel to it that the television show does.
It's rough around the edges in just the right way.
Yep.
So that's what I've got. So good books all around this week, guys.
Yeah, it was a good week.
So I think Wednesday, as always, new comic books drop. It's my favorite day of the week. I don't know about you guys. I mean, maybe besides payday. Those don't come nearly enough. But so what are some books that are coming out? Let's get ahead of ourselves just a little bit.
Yeah, my book for this week is High Level #1 by Vertigo. Rob Sheridan, Barnaby Bajenda, Guillaume Hospital, and Romulo Fajardo. It's years in the future, a smuggler is forced to deliver a child messiah to High Level, which is a mythical city. So other than that, I don't know much about it, but it sounds pretty interesting. It sounds a little bit like Realm to me. Mm-hmm. And that you're trying to get something to a place that you don't know really exists type thing. So we'll see.
Well, I'm going to check out a new book that it's a volume 2, and I didn't read volume 1, but I'm going to test the waters and see what I think about it. And that is Stronghold #1 from Phil Hester and Ryan Kelly. It's an Aftershock book. I don't know, Craig, you're a big Aftershock guy. Did you read?
I did not read the first Stronghold, which I don't know why, because it's Phil Hester, so I assumed that I would. But
that's what pulled me in.
It, yeah.
I saw Phil's name there, and I love what that guy does. So I'm on it. Essentially, the planet's a prison planet. It's a lot of it's underwater. You're not sure what's going on. It's an Aftershock book, and it's Phil Hester, so it's going to have some. It's going to be a mystery. You're going to have some weird powered people doing weird things. Yeah. I'm going to check it out. It seems like fun. The cover art Kelly does a great job.
Yeah.
So I'm going to check that out.
Yeah. For me, it's Naomi #2. Mm-hmm. It's coming out. It's going to be the determining issue to see if I want to jump on this new series. I like the first issue. It definitely had me curious, so I want to see what direction it's going in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
To no one's surprise, and because I also don't have a lot coming out next week, Venom #11. More of Eddie's tour through San Francisco, which I just realized that he is also on the West Coast, along with Superior Spider-Man and West Coast Avengers.
They're making a concerted effort to get heroes on the West Coast, and
I dig Marvel. I'm wondering if they're ever going to do anything with any of those characters in Venom, because he could possibly be a big issue, like in San Francisco, especially with the Venom symbiote kind of left unchecked.
It's kind of weird because other than intermingling with Spider-Man, they usually don't have much interaction with Venom with other superheroes. It's just kind of he does his stories are kind of self-contained. But it would be interesting to see him,
and that's why I'm kind of really interested with Donny Cates having the series, because it looks like he's more open to bringing in obscure characters that we don't really see a lot. Like in the first volume where he decided to bring in Miles instead of Peter. instantly dug that.
Yeah.
Like that decision. But yeah, the last thing we got, I think, was a Web of Venom Carnage book.
Yeah.
So I look forward to seeing how more of this unfolds.
Yeah.
Talk about seeing Venom with other characters. Let's get real far ahead of ourselves for a second. Did you see the promo that dropped this week?
Yeah, for the Savage
Uh-huh.
Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots
Venom
of murdery characters.
Yeah.
All up on an Avengers team, which is some of them have been Avengers before. Dr. Voodoo, or Brother Voodoo, Wolverine, but you've got the Punisher being an Avenger. You've got Elektra being an Avenger.
And Venom.
Venom, who eats people indiscriminately, or at least has in the past. So I'm curious to see this.
It's really, I mean, they're not even done with the Return of Wolverine yet.
Right.
So,
Are they going to be current continuity 616 characters?
They have to.
I'm
be.
sure.
I'm just curious because I don't know how I'm going to feel about other writers handling Venom now. That
No one's allowed
Donny
to touch
Cates
my
is-
Venom but Donny Cates.
Oh man, I mean, Cullen Bunn's getting him in issue 13, so I'm sure he'll do great things with them. But yeah, I'm just kind of like he's done great things with them, and I mean, it's just I could just take it or leave it with that. And I mean, I'll definitely give it a first.
Savage Avengers.
Yeah,
I think it'll be
definitely give it
fun.
1 or 2 issues.
It's the Avengers. I got to read it. I'm on Avengers
it'll
mark,
be a fun
so.
book. So.
Well, guys, we ready to kill this thing? Call it done?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we appreciate all of you for joining us again this week. Hope you had a good time. Hope you liked talking about some comics. Come back next week. We're going to be covering some news, some stuff that's dropped over the past month or so. See what's been happening and just our opinions on it. We're also going to roundtable a book. We hadn't decided what that is yet, but it's going to happen. Other than that, like I said, join us in our Facebook group. It's a lot of fun. We have a great time. And go forth. Love some comics.
For sure.